Hey class, it's Professor Z. I want to give you a little bit of an overview of how to understand the information that's being given to you in charts and graphs and other visual information. So I'm going to give you some tips to help you to break that stuff down. And then we're going to talk about how we can use that information to draw conclusions, to do analysis, to make inferences based on the information that we're given. So here's like just a little bit of a framework to help you through the information. And to say it really simply, I usually want to figure out what's the information about, what's being measured, how is it being measured, is there any like cues being used through color. Sometimes everything will be in one color and then something will be standing out in another color. It's kind of a visual cue to help me to hone in on what's important. And then can I summarize the information in my own words? That's something we've been doing all semester, where we're trying to paraphrase, we're trying to put information into our own words, because that sort of active learning strategy is going to make sure it's going to help us self-test, make sure we understand it. And it's going to help better with memory and with learning, because the process of putting it into our own language is the process through which we learn and internalize the material. So the topic, right? So start by looking at the title. Like most visual information that you get is going to have a title. So read that title, because the title is usually very direct about what is being discussed in the visual information, in the chart, the table, the graph, whatever it may be. From there, you try and figure out what is being measured, right? So you're going to look at the labels to get an idea. A lot of times there's going to be like an X and a Y axis. I'm going to show you that in a minute. But you're trying to look for labels to understand what's being measured. Sometimes it might be money, it might be time, it could be, the amount of something. So there are a lot of different things that may get measured. And then, how is it being measured? Look for units and ask yourself if the units make sense. In other words, sometimes it might be like you were looking at the COVID data last week, and it was per capita, per 100,000 people was one unit of measurement. Okay. So there's going to usually be increments, and you want to understand those increments so that you can understand the information. Um, and then, like I said, with color coding, it's often used to add information to a graph without taking up extra space. So it's a way to make something stand out without having to explain it in words. Okay. And often there might be sometimes be what's called a legend or a key that explains the color coding. Okay. So it might be like, the regions, if you're looking at, say, a map of, for the presidential race, the states that lean Democratic are going to be blue, that lean Republican are usually red, and so that would be shown in the key, and then that would help you to quickly digest the visual information. And then, so once you've kind of like taken it in, it's like then can you spit it back out in your own words? So what is the trend or the piece of information that you find interesting or that they're trying to convey to you? And if you're struggling, kind of go back through all the steps. Because sometimes with visual information, there's a little bit of a temptation to try and take it in really quickly without fully digesting it. So just take your time with it, almost as if you're reading a paragraph. You have to read it just as closely. Okay. Um, so let's just take a look at a couple of sample charts and tables and graphs. So um, let me just pull this up a little bit. Okay, this is I'm going to give you a link in the module to this week, and I do want you to read through this carefully. I'm going to kind of go through it a little bit more quickly to just give you a bit of an overview of it. And do the practice question. It's a good little kind of like pre-test to see where you're at. And the purpose of this lesson is to make sure you understand the use of common tables and charts and infographics and when you would use each one. So charts often are going to have numerical data. So bar graphs, line graphs, pie charts, stacked comparison charts. These are often used to convey data. Okay. This is a sample bar graph, right? So using that method, that 5-step method we were just talking about, right? What's the topic? So they, start by looking for the title. U.S. healthcare costs are high relative to other countries. Okay, so they've straight up stated what they're going to show us in the bar graph, right? That they're going to show how our costs in the US are high compared to other countries, right? Well, how are they going to measure it, right? So, or what is being measured and how is it being measured, right? So we know it's healthcare costs, and what are these numbers? What is this 16.9, 11.5, right? I don't know what these numbers are, so that's what I have to figure out, right? Um, and it says, let's just see, 2015 healthcare expenses as a percentage of GDP. Now, if I don't know what GDP is, it's going to be difficult for me to understand what this means. So I may have to look up GDP. GDP is a measurement of economic output. It's gross domestic product. It's like the value of everything that we make and produce in our economy. Okay. And so what this is telling me, right? Here's the US. Here are all these other countries, right? So this is the x-axis that labels each country. And then this is the y-axis. It's not labeled here because it's explained to me here, but oftentimes it's going to be labeled on the side, okay? In this case, they're telling me that 16.9% is the percentage of GDP that the US healthcare expenses are, okay? And what I notice, right, is that almost all the other countries are blue, right? The the yellow is the average, right? And then the red, which is the US. Now, red is often thought of as a caution, right? Like a red light. So they're showing me, they're using colors to cue me as to what I should be taking from this information, right? I also have them in order from like high to low. So that's also helping me to more quickly digest the information that the US is spending more money as a percentage of GDP than other countries. Okay. So I have those color cues also, right? And so then, I could ask myself, is there a way that I can put this into my own language, right? Well, the average is 9% and we're at 17. So the US is almost twice the average, right? We spend almost double as much as the average country does on healthcare expenses. Okay, so that might be a way that I could try and put it into my own words. Okay. Okay, and so here's the second one where we have a line graph. Okay, and line graphs, the x-axis is almost always going to be like time. It's going to be measuring some time. It might be months, it might be years, it might be days, it could be whatever, right? It's going to be measuring something over time, the value of something over time. And so in this case, this is an example of a line graph. It's social media traffic trends, right? So how much time people are spending on different social media sites. And over here I have a legend that's color coded, right? That tells me, blue is Facebook, red is Pinterest, the green is Twitter, the sort of orange is YouTube, okay? So, at a quick glance, I certainly can see Facebook has the most traffic, Pinterest the second most, Twitter the third most, YouTube the bottom, right? And I can also see the trends over time. What's happening over time? Well, what's happening to the Facebook line? It's going up, right? Same deal with the Pinterest line. The Twitter line, not so much, and coming down a little bit here, right? And then the YouTube line, a couple bumps up there, but pretty flat along the way, right? So I'm getting some information about the traffic on these sites, okay? And the one other thing I want to say about this is the y-axis is in percent, right? And it basically is showing me that in 2012 and 2013, right, Facebook was at 10% of the total traffic for social media. I, at least that's how I read it, but there's not a clear explanation of what this percent is. And so this is like in this case, you've got sort of a line graph that may not be as clear as it could be, because I'm a little suspicious. This could be like maybe the increase in traffic or something, because I would imagine, right, if I'm analyzing this, I would think Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, and YouTube would add up to more than 10, 4, and 1 and less than 1% of the total traffic, right? So I'm guessing that this might be like, I don't know, monthly increase in traffic or something like that, but it's not labeled. So it's hard, the y-axis isn't labeled. It's just a percentage. It doesn't say what that percentage means. So it's leaving it unclear, and it's asking me to do work that I shouldn't have to do in reading a chart. or a line graph in this case, sorry. Okay, another type of visual organizer that you'll see is a pie chart. And pie charts are almost always like out of 100% or out of a total whole, right? So it's showing you how the pie is carved into pieces, right? So Q3 sales, so that's third quarter sales. Okay, that's what I'm looking at. That's my topic. That's what's being measured, right? And the labels here are telling me what each piece of the pie is. And then the percentages are telling me what percentage of the total sales in the third quarter each of those 5 items were. Okay. And they color code it so that I can clearly see the distinction between the 5 pieces of the pie, right? So if I was going to summarize this, I might say, clothing was 1/3 of sales or something like that. And that was the most, the highest number of sales. Whereas, accessories, footwear, and novelty items all were around 20%, and then fragrances was much smaller at 5% or something like that. So I might want to find a way to convey that, like, clothing is the leading sales item, fragrances is a very small portion, and then these other 3 are kind of bunched, clustered together in the middle. Stacked comparison charts are less frequently seen, but actually becoming more popular, I guess. So in a stacked comparison chart, each stack usually totals 100%. Okay. And then it's showing you, it's almost like its own pie chart. Like each stack is a pie chart, right? And then you can compare each of the bars. Okay. So again, I'm looking for topic, right? So here, I don't have a title, right? So I'm not sure what's being measured, right? But it looks like I see studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedrooms, right? If I read the X axis, right? The Y axis doesn't have a label. I do have color codes, right? For no pets, cat owner, dog owner, right? So it looks like it's telling me a little bit about um, pet ownership within the population at different levels, right? So if I have a studio, 18% of people have a dog, 49% have a cat, right? 33% have no pets, right? Um, and I can look at the trends as the apartments get bigger, right? So once I get to 3 bedrooms, only an 8% chance of there being a dog. Cats, 37, right? 55% no pets, right? So this is interesting information, right? And I could start to try and think about what it's showing me and why it looks like that, right? So that's where I get into the analysis. Why is it that, a studio, only 18% have a dog, 47 at 1 bedroom, then 2 and 3, it goes down again, right? What is it that makes 1 bedroom like the sort of ideal space for having a dog? Well, maybe a studio is too small, right? Maybe that's why it goes here. And a 1 bedroom might often suggest somebody who's living alone, so they may be more likely to have a pet, right? This is me making inferences and trying to kind of do analysis of the information that's being given to me. Cat owners, right? Well, maybe if you're in a studio, you're more likely to live by yourself and more likely to have a cat. I'm not sure, right? That's just my guess. I may be wrong. And then, cats are pretty consistent. Well, I don't know. Why is it that dog ownership goes so far down in a 3 bedroom, whereas cat ownership stays consistent, right? That's something I could try to figure out. Okay. It's something I could try and analyze. So that's a stacked comparison chart. This is a line graph that's stacked, and these are also becoming, I guess, a little more widely used. And this one's got a title, right? So I've got a topic, 2018 sales to date. We're measuring the sales of a company, right? I've got it over time, right? Which is what a line graph often will do. So each month, right? So I could think about why sales change from month to month for different items. And I've got a number here, but it doesn't tell me what this number means, right? Is it dollars? Is it number of items? It's unclear. So, I'm going to guess, usually a good line chart is going to label it a little better than this, and you'll know exactly what you're looking at. So just pay attention for that. But my guess here might be that this is, it's almost always in dollars, though it's surprising that this doesn't have a dollar sign. So I'm inclined to think it might be number of items. And what I can see is the part